Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, welcome back to the show. Today, I have a great guest, a former client and a really good friend of mine, Dmitri. He's been a computer engineer for quite a while already, and today we're going to talk about transitioning to remote work and the pluses and minuses of how to do that, and also how to go about doing that as well. So, like a little bit of a background is Dmitri was actually one of the guys that convinced me to actually go full remote as well. So I've been doing that for quite a while also. And basically, before I transitioned, I was doing kind of like half in person, half remote. Of course, I started with just doing completely in person coaching altogether. And I would always tell my clients, like some of the clients, not all, but some of the clients commuted quite far to work and they would race like an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours in traffic, and they would just have a hard time really attending to a lot of their goals and just having a lot of balance in life. Because when you calculate 8 to 10 hours of work a day, at the job, but then also having to drive like an hour or two each way to work, it's pretty much like you have no time left. So I would tell them like, hey, your job is actually okay, but if you can figure out a way to work remotely, you would just have that time difference to really kind of stay healthy or just attend to other things that make you feel balanced as well. And when Dimitri did it, I was like, hey, I keep telling all my clients to do it. And I felt kind of like a hypocrite by not doing it myself. So when he did it, it was like one of those tipping points that convinced me to do it as well. So I'm going to let Dimitri take over and kind of talk a lot about his experience. And so welcome, Dimitri. You can go ahead, man, start with what got you into computers and kind of how your progression from college went and all that stuff.
Hey, Eugene. Good to meet with you on this. It's been a while since we had any long talks, so this is real fun. Thanks for doing it. I'm happy to speak to you about remote work. I don't have too many areas I'm super passionate about, but remote work certainly is one of them, and I feel like that's only growing as time goes on. So yeah, it's good to be on here to talk about that. I um I got into this. So I was in tech for a bit. I mean, I have all my degrees in computer science. So I started sort of right out of high school, just like a little bit, and then I pursued that stuff. So it's been a pretty solid path that I haven't deviated from too much from then on, which is years now, years. And I got into, so it's almost traditional, like it's everybody in university does it, I guess, in tech, that to take on industry internships. It's like it's almost an unwritten, I don't know, part of the degree is to take a couple on. So I did, and those are traditional regular internships. And I had a good amount of fun at them. I found my dissertation topic at one, and it was fun. It was like fun times, good folks, smart folks, learning about the industry. But I had a job in between grad school too, which kind of got me started thinking about remote work. Honestly, it was I wasn't it wasn't it just let's say it's one of my least favorite jobs I had so far. And it was a drive. It was going south and tech work. But it really made me think, gosh, I don't need to be here to do this. And I wish it wasn't. It was in 2000, I don't know, 7, 8, something like that. And I that kind of planted the idea in my mind. I did some more of those internships, and was still coming in then, and those were better. But I was still thinking, look, I don't need to physically be here to do any of this, not a bit. And so it like put that in the back of my head. By the time I was kind of finishing up my degree, I was pretty sure. I was pretty sure I wanted to just not do this. Like I just did not want that as a life. I don't really know how better to say that, but I
Pretty
just did
clear.
not want that. Yeah. What's that?
No, I mentioned it was pretty clear, just that
Yeah,
phrase.
yeah, yeah. I did not want it. Yeah. I don't know. People pick remote work for different reasons, but I'll go into that a little bit later. But I didn't want it, so I thought, well, I'm gonna do this remote. I'm gonna do this remote if I'm gonna do this, or I'll do it remote if it kills me, kind of thing. So that was a good attitude to start because it was before the pandemic, and that was really popularized. So I started looking like for the little shreds. I started looking for the little bits and pieces of wherever I could do remote work only, no little gambles or compromises or anything like that. So I found a contracting agency. I did actual, so near the end of my degree, I started looking heavily, like researching, search engines and so forth. What is it that will allow me to do remote work? At that point, I was looking for a paycheck rather than a particular amount. Like, I will do tech work and you pay me money and it's going to be remote. I'm not coming in. And I found stuff like Fiverr and all of this, like these temp agencies stuff. And I started trying that. So one thing I found really quickly was that a lot of these common popular temping agencies and these contracting agencies, they have a very, very specific skill set, and like a lot of effort goes into just sort of fluffing your work experience and getting to know clients and getting as quickly as possible, picking up like that job, that contract that'll do it for you. All that time you invest in that profile, it's an upfront cost and you have to maintain it, and that's not paid. No one's paying you to do that part. So the only way to recoup with that is to then overcharge everybody. And so another thing I learned pretty quickly is that you actually, when you're doing freelance contracts, you have to overcharge everybody by a significant amount, way more than you expect to, for what you think that it is the fair value of the work given. Because actually, and you're starting out, that thinking is flawed. It's wrong, because you only think that there's implicit assumptions about insurance. Essentially, you're insuring against time periods from your current employer, your current contract, where you will not have work. You're looking for work, right? You're also charging implicitly for work on your profile and getting the next client. You have to. There's not another way to really do that. If you're just undercharged for it, then you don't recoup that cost, and so you're not making out. And it's also, if you charge too little, you're actually hurting yourself, because the clients know that you ought to be charging for these things, and they're just going to think you're dumb for not doing it. They're not going to think you're a good bargain. They're going to think you're dumb because you are too fresh to know that you have to insure against these things and pay at whatever rate. So you got to overcharge. It's one thing I learned. You're also paying your own health insurance. You're also paying for your own tax preparation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got to make those charges. If only, let's say you don't even care about money, you got to make them so that the client will pick you, because otherwise they'll think you're too dumb to work for them. So anyhow, that ended up, I was trying to really minimize things for myself in terms of this kind of unpaid work that I would have to do to fluff up my resume, get projects, little sample projects out and this kind of thing, to entice the clients. And so I didn't want to do that upfront work to a certain extent. So I went with a TopTall, which is one agency that their claim is that they sort of do their filtering beforehand. So you test in with them, you take a battery of tests, just like you would for any tech job under the sun now. But then you're in, and their guys, their headhunters will go around and look for contracts. And then they'll try to hook you up with the contracts. It's a one and done deal. They do a trial period, you work for them, and they start paying you. So that worked really well for me, because I would skip all of these stupid, endless, unpaid conversations with people who were getting paid for them to be like, oh, well, do you want to work for us? Can you do this? Can you do that? Da, da, da. So that part worked. One thing it didn't prepare me for was still, you have to, when you're contracting in remote, you have to keep a lot of plates spinning, because you again have to insure against periods where you don't have a contract, you don't have work going. So you have to always have a lot of plates, kind of like almost like dating expert advice or something like that. You have to have all these little hooks out in the air to really guard against the case that you're sitting on your hands and you don't have something to work for and make money on, and you're just looking for something. You want to always be looking so that you have things lined up and have these possibilities kind of coming up next, and maybe they fall off, but you have them ready, because you can blow through 3 or 4 of them before you hit one on a given month that you're in, if a particular contract ends. and you want to overcharge. So those are the two big things I learned with contracting stuff. So that it worked out. I did really well with that. After that initial period of really struggling to get something without having the profile and without having enough hooks and preparation out there to really have the sold case for potential clients, it took a while. So that was like a pain point. But after that, I landed a few. It was real smooth. Like once you land the job, everyone's too lazy to worry to worry too much. Is what I found out about basically getting you out of there unless you do something real bad. So that way, once you're in, you're safe for a bit, and it's good. Even on contracts, you have the time, the bandwidth to prepare and to do all the little ancillary things while you're picking up a paycheck for the primary work you're doing for them. And so those are all of the problems, or those are all of the considerations you really have to have in mind. It's a total own skill set for freelance and remote work, to just be always working on profiles and minimizing the time until you're picking up a check. The advantage is you can potentially make more because you can, like I said, you can overcharge plus a little bit more on top of that to make up for just, I don't know, the hassle on top of it. And it'll work out. Like contracting and freelance rates are quite high for a lot of work. So you can do well that way. So that's the cost benefit. Now, if you do freelance work full time, that's nicer because basically a lot of it you ended up getting paid for not particularly a lot of effort. You're letting your profile and things sit idle while you're doing the work, getting paid, and it's sort of more stable. So that's the trade-off. It's harder to find because there's still, even after pandemic, there's I don't know what the proportion is, but there's a preference towards in office work. So you have to really hunt. But I really heavily suggest doing that, and it's sort of my own only kind of political soapbox too, because the more people in tech are voting with their feet, the easier it is for me to then make the fully remote argument. And don't go for any of that hybrid crap. Nobody, please don't go for that hybrid crap. It's all a sham. Don't let them do that. It's all, they want to get their little one-day hook into you, and then they'll pull you in for the rest of the days, little by little until it's all salami slice tactics kind of thing. So, yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you, I'm like, how does that work? They get you in once a week, and then like a few months later, it's twice a week, and then
it can. 3 times a week. Basically, yeah. Like ultimately, in my opinion, they either trust you to work remote or they don't. And if there's a middle ground, it's because they don't trust you enough. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot harder to gain trust once you're already in an established flow or whatever. You don't just have to gain trust. You have to not only gain it, but now you have to push for changing things around to get rid of days that you're in there. And that's the part that like no one wants to start shifting things around. You have to have it on paper, all of this. So it's best not to do that. And plus, when you get full-time employment as a remote worker, that is your location on your paperwork. And so you have sort of like base pay. It has a stickiness to it. You're on paper, you're hired as a remote worker, right? So you want that. It also sets up a good record because when you're interviewing again, people will say, well, how long have you been remote working? You say, officially, on paper, I can provably show you that I've been a full-time remote worker for X many years. So it has a benefit. But yeah, hybrid stuff is a sham. I said, like, one of the people have lots of different reasons for doing remote work. A huge reason is commute. I had a commute that was a 1 hour commute. I once had a commute, it was a 3-hour commute, one direction, right? So yeah, I'm not even kidding. But that case, I did it. What's that?
3 hours one direction?
3 hours one direction. So this is a 1 day, because it was a 1 day hybrid thing. We organized it. I would do, even though it's a crazy commute, I would do it 1 day a week. And that 1 day was awful. Like I would leave at I believe 5. I would get up at 5, and I would do 3 hours, and then I would actually, because this is in LA, so what worst traffic? I think number one worst traffic in the country. I would wait until midnight, so I would work there until midnight just because of how much I hate traffic to go back. I would be driving at 1 a.m. back, and that would do the 405 construction at that time. So it just was awful. Actually, the first month or so, that day I would always do a hotel that day just to not deal with it. And it ended up proving I got out of that because it was just to find a hotel, stay at a hotel. I'm a cheap guy, so But anyhow, so that and another time I did a 1 hour commute, and I had a 30-minute commute at one point for one of my internships, and for me, the commute, even like surprisingly, I hated the 3 hour commute. Like I'm not even gonna, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but the commute, for other than that extreme case, was not like the big driver for me. I had a lot of people question me on a 1 hour commute, and I said, yeah, I mean, it's not great, but I don't really notice it too bad. But it is like, that's a big consideration. That thing is then, I think one of the top, oftentimes for many years, often the number one cause of preventable death is car accidents, right? So, I mean, people don't think of it like smoking, but it's right there. Just because you don't think about it, people didn't used to think about smoking like smoking, or being too fat and having diabetes. But now this is above being too fat, I believe. For many years, they're right up into it with each other. So I mean, you're really, just because you don't think about it doesn't mean you're not risking your life.
Yeah. So I remember one time you had some kind of close car accident call, right?
A couple of times. Yeah. One time I was driving back from work. I saw actually a vehicular fatality. Someone was drunk ahead of me, or I don't know, inebriated in some way. They were driving very, very crazily, and the truck went up off of the slope, went up the hill, and it turned around. It was like Grand Theft Auto style. It fell on the roof and it blew up, and a piece of the car flew and it hit my passenger side shotgun window. Blew it up. I was heading back from work at night one day. Those, I mean, I can't imagine there was, I didn't look into it, but I can't imagine there was a good chance that those folks got out of that safely. So yeah, I mean, I saw it, and I don't even drive that much. So
yeah, I've been in I think three car accidents myself. Luckily, didn't get injured in any one of them, but basically that's an average of like one car accident every like 12 years,
Yeah.
So it's pretty, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows at least someone that's been in a car accident in their immediate family. So it happens a lot more often, way, way more often than you think. What's your take on, what's the culture like these days? What's the vibe? Are people are more like the managers or the executives pushing more to getting people back in person more? Because I presume people that have been in the industry for a while and are kind of older, they want the systems that they're raised on to kind of stay in place, even if they're not the most efficient, even if there are better things to do these days. Like, what's the vibe these days? Are people pushing more towards like, hey, you got to come and work in person? Or
for sure it is. It's the vibe right now is pandemic's over. Let's get people back and chained back up like we're used to. It's a big push. Everybody's on board. They're having conferences about it. I'm sure they're having little coffee chats about how they got their guys back, what kind of little hooks and hybrid schemes they did to pull people little by little, all this stuff. It's uncomfortable, and it's kind of, I think it's very distasteful, frankly, like that they're doing it. Or everybody has these return to work plans. It's all very just ugly, I think. I hear a lot, the big town companies especially love this. Everybody come back to our great benefits. You got your free lunch, your free childcare, your free commute. We'll take you on a bus. We'll do your nails while you're on the bus. We'll sing you a song, this kind of thing. we'll massage you while you're working, and you can sleep here when our egg pod, all this stuff. And so that's just to have you stay there longer. It's admitted that it is. And also, my opinion, all of this stuff, I've had colleagues who tell me, yes, there's nothing that can replace in-person whiteboard collaboration. And I do not relate to that experience. A lot of my colleagues in hardware say this. And if that's how it is, then that's fine. But it's just not the universe I'm in. I haven't encountered anything like that where there's an alternative. In my opinion, the vast majority of this is to justify the existence of middle management, where their entire purpose is to just sort of wander around. And if you remember being in school, the test proctors would wander around and look at just sort of look menacing and making sure that you're at your desk and not opening up a book during a test or something. Just really sort of look menacing and kind of wander around. Really, that's their reason for existence, and making them feel like it isn't, making them feel good about themselves and what they do in their life, in their work, is this huge thing in our society that we're all paying into. We really want to make these people feel okay about who they are and what they do. And so there's this huge sort of tax where, well, all right, we're gonna bring people in so that their situation is justified and they feel good about themselves. That's my opinion, of course, but I do think that. And I think a lot of times, a lot of tech executives, a lot of tech companies will say, geez, gosh, we got to get this beautiful mind share, this wonderful experience together. We got to all come in. We got to work. Everybody's Einstein and Hawking, and we're gonna just freaking put this up and solve the world's problems and invent calculus 3.0. Just crazy stuff. Really, really wonderfully brilliant new ideas. How can you do that without in person? No, I mean, I don't believe that for a second. I think it's all control. It's like a business version of some kind of BDSM nonsense. They want you there so that they can feel that they control you, like a printer, a resource. They want you. You don't want their printer wandering off, maybe printing for someone else in their off time. Nobody wants that. That's your printer. That's your vehicle. You own that thing. You don't want it just wandering around doing it, heaven knows what. No, you want that thing there. And if you got to tell it, geez, mind share, man, come on now. We got to all get together, group, big minds where we're going to invent new ideas. We're going to be Fortune 500 soon. You'll say it, because it's, people, unlike a printer, need a little veneer, a little cloak to convince them.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about it.
I think it's because we're in that kind of gray area right now. Kind of like, I don't know if this is the best example, honestly, but kind of like when people were still riding horses, but like 20% of the population had automobiles already, like the Model T. And it was kind of one of those like, once again, kind of the old-minded people that basically have already been working in that system for like 20, 30, 40 years, not being able to even think outside the box, and stuff of that sort. I mean, has anyone ever, do you know, I just know a little bit of stuff that I read from articles here and there, but has anyone crunched any numbers on to see if productivity in tech actually died down during the whole COVID thing when literally everyone was working remote?
They did. There was a couple of studies. I can't name them off the top of my head, but they found an increase in productivity, actually, for the most part. The counter to that, there's a couple of studies. I believe Google did one. I believe Microsoft did one. I think Twitter also. They found an increase in productivity. And there are also other studies, which I'm a little bit more skeptical of, that there is a decrease in original thinking or something like that. This whole idea of we're going to get together and we're going to invent the new internet. We're going to invent nuclear fusion together because we're all in a room smelling each other's farts. And a whiteboard. There's whiteboards all over the damn place. So there are studies on that, but I read one of them and I was not convinced. It seemed very, very non-rigorous. I'm not sure how you measure brilliant ideas. They're not very, they don't come around very often, certainly not in a focus group or something. So I am dubious of those results, but I think that those results were used to justify this whole Well, even if all our other studies are showing that productivity increased, I think the increase is around 10%. The people accounted for it mostly by drive time decrease. Then we have to have some reason why we're still trying to pull people in. We can't just tell them we have a fetish for control. That doesn't make for good press. No, we got to have this idea study. And then, oh man, you wake up the next day, I could be inventing nuclear fusion, if I just had the whiteboard and all these people farting in a room together, right?
Well, hopefully they get better digestion, man, so they don't have to fart so much.
Maybe. Oh no, man, no, they'll get what's his name? Bezos said he invented the two pizza meeting. You got to get that nice firm pizza bread. You go through 2 pizzas and the meeting's done. Oh, geez, what a freaking benefit, man! You got your 2 rooms full of pizza farts, 2 pizza farts, and that's it. Like meeting's over. Thank God for that, right? Oh, geez. It's like if they say we'll beat you with a stick, but only on Tuesdays, Oh, thank Christ for that. Oh, it could be every day. Oh my God, what a job! Oh, I love it. Yeah. Fucking revolution.
I found this one meme. It's like if you want to make meetings really fast, just have people hold like a plank position,
Yeah, absolutely.
And the meetings go quick. But yeah, I mean, to back up what you said in terms of productivity, from my observation of coaching, literally people all my clients were remote over the whole COVID thing because no one was going to work, no one was going to the gym. And I could tell you, like, actually, they spent more hours working total because I talked to them daily and weekly and asked them a lot about their lifestyle and all that stuff. They actually, on average, claim to spend more hours working because it's more tempting to work and you generally have more energy because you don't waste it on the commute. Also, you don't waste that energy of dealing with different in-person personalities, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But I saw that they actually, on average, work like an hour or 2 more per day, which is basically, depending on how many days they work, like roughly 5 to 10 more hours per week for the same pay. And they had more time to work out. So I found them hitting their fitness goals way easier working remotely than in person because they simply just had more time plus more energy to do the work. Plus, because like their low-grade chronic stress, which is, typically goes up higher and in-person work has decreased tremendous amount, their body just wasn't pumping out cortisol so much. And thus, they're just in a healthier state to liberate that body fat even faster, especially when combined with a good diet. So there are the other things to consider. And then when you have a healthier employees, inevitably, they're going to be happier employees as well, because you obviously can't be happy when you're not like physically healthy. It's just the mind and the body are connected, and inflammation always begins in the body and leads to inflammation in the brain. And there are some studies in neuroplasticity that it looks like thought patterns could also lead to changes in the body as well. But like there's a huge body of evidence that shows clearly that unhealthy body leads to an unhealthy mind. And then obviously unhealthy people can't make healthy decisions, or a lot of times the best decisions, and that's going to affect productivity because the energy is going to be lower or the mood isn't going to be right, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, just to reinforce kind of what you mentioned in terms of productivity increasing, I just saw it increase across the board, whether the people had kids at home or no kids at home, or they're married or they're just dating, whatever. I just saw the productivity increase, and just I feel like overall happiness of the person increase as well. I don't know if you've noticed that either.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody I talked to, I haven't talked to a single person so far who has said I'm unhappier now that I'm doing remote work. When this was more of a mass phenomenon during the COVID lockdown period. No one would say this is fantastic. I love this. And I agree. My personal attitude when I was just desperately looking for remote work is, and people share this when I talk to them about it. You're ready to work more. You're ready to take a bit of a cut, maybe more than a bit, to just not be involved in this show up and all this nonsense. You're more desperate. You're hungrier. You're hungrier, like Rocky Balboa hungry. You'll do what it takes. So you're more motivated to keep your little slice, your remote work, because you know what's out there. Out there is, the companies that say, oh, come by, but only on Tuesdays, and what, every second Tuesday we won't beat you with a stick when you come by. Isn't that a great deal? No. When you're working fully remote, you're hungry to keep that. You don't want to be coming out any days. You don't want any meetings at all, even light ones, even with a wiffle ball bat. You don't want it. And so you're hungry, you're ready for that. So you do more, you're more productive. That's definitely my attitude. So yeah, I believe it. I haven't had any conversation with people against. I have had a lot of conversations where people are really devastated. They're really hurt that people are bringing them back in again, because I think of like this kind of, there's this need to justify the existence of an entire class of people. And there is this kind of hidden kind of S&M thing where they really want control and dominance over you visibly. They want a visible, like, a reaction of respect and ownership of you, of your time, of your presence. So, it's ugly, but that's how I see it. I think there's a kind of America's a classless society, or so it's built. But I think under that cover, there is a class where it's maintaining and kind of watching over and kind of administering, monitoring, moderating people under your workplace jurisdiction. And so that's pretty much what these folks do. And so if they're not there, they can't do their job. I think a lot of those jobs shouldn't be done in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely agree. But my thing is, Dmitri, like, my thing is like, if you're getting the work done with the appropriate quality and on time, like, I don't personally care, like, if I was the boss or whatever, the owner, like, how does the dialogue go? Like, okay, let's say the boss is like, you got to come into work. Like, you can't make the argument of you need to be more productive if you're already doing the work you're hired to do with the appropriate quality. So what's going on?
It's easy. That's what I'm saying. The argument is easy. They say it's all about, we got to have these beautiful ideas together. We got to get all together, have a company spirit, put on matching jumpsuits one in a while on Wacky Friday or whatever, wear a silly hat, get motivation, team spirit together. And now we're going to invent nuclear fusion together. We're going to invent calculus 3.0 when we're in that room, smelling each other's parts, all good, team spirit, That's the argument they make. Or when you try to go narrow in on it, they'll say, look, you want to work here. This is what we're doing. You're not an exception. You're not a privileged class. You're not a protected class. This is not about you or your details. We're doing this for everybody. Come on in. Come on down. So, that's the argument they make. The other thing I wanted to add to this is there is, on top of people who it's their job to sort of keep you in your pen, fed and happy. There's another whole group of people where you go into the office, you say hi to your secretary, you say hi to the office manager. They got to be there because there's an office. You say hi to the parking administrator, attendant, the validation folks, the caterers, the security folks that maintain the security systems there. You have you talk to them. You make sure that the temperature in the building is just right for all of these folks who have nothing to do with a single thing you do except the actual physical place you're in at the time you're doing it, needlessly. You're just there, and so all of them being there is justified. You're there doing the thing that the company, whatever company is for, and they're there to maintain your habitat while you're there. But you don't need to be in your habitat. You're already maintaining a habitat for yourself. You have to, right? So what is the need for literally all of this, all of their efforts? They're going to be fighting for that too, right? If somebody is maintaining the property, making sure all the bills are paid, utilities, those are all jobs. Everyone wants to keep them, even politically. Like, you can't just have everyone wandering off, all these people who maintain a building. Imagine you're a computer programmer and you have to work in a 24-hour fitness. You wander in the thing, you set up, you just have to, that's a condition of employment. And you have, this whole row of people really going at it, just hitting those cardio bikes, really going at it. And then you say, you know what, I'm gonna take a little bit longer of a lunch break. And the gym manager complains, says, oh, you're going to let Sally down. Look, Sally at the bike 3. You're gonna like look at her doing her job, like setting this all up for you. If Sally and Wendy and Sue and Bill weren't here peddling, how could you do your job on your computer? You know, you need them. They're in the 24-hour fitness. They're working out. You should go go get on your computer, do your work. You need them. They need you. You need them. It's a symbiosis. No, they have nothing to do with you. They're just in the same building doing some other activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's just all used to justify, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, these offices and buildings and all the maintenance that requires and the insurance that's required for all these buildings, I mean, they're like super expensive, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you can get like even 30 or 40% of your work crew to go work remotely and just cut down to a smaller office or just rent out the difference to another company, for example. I mean, your overhead can decrease so much, and you could maybe pay people more or have better benefits or just whatever, invested in other things. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just kind of like, I really do think it is like a combination of what you mentioned in terms of wanting that micromanagement control, like basically hovering over your shoulder, breathing down your neck as you're working 24/7. But I really do think it's just like a lot of these oldies kind of stuck in old systems of thinking because they've been doing it for like 20, 30, 40 years. And they really just don't know a better way, you know, and they're not just kind of up to date.
They know it. I actually don't agree with you on that because they know it. They've had it. They know it from COVID. What's that?
I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Nope, they know it. They know it. And more so, there's a study just recently out. Those guys and girls, they're not coming back. A lot of them aren't coming back, at least not all the time. So they want you you want you there. They want you watched and controlled, but the actual managers, they don't want to go back because they know it sucks, right?
Yeah.
There was a study recently, 40% of them coming back.
Yeah. Out of all the clients I trained remotely over the whole COVID thing, I think possibly there's like one person that was looking forward to going back, I think. And I don't know how genuine he was with that. I think it was just maybe just bored of being at home or something like that. But everyone else was like, the people that were required to go back, they're like dreading it. And in fact, quite a bit of them actually just quit and looked for another job that allowed.
Good for them. I love that.
Yeah.
I love when people do that. Again, it's my only my soapbox. The more people make the change, the happier I am because it makes it easier to maintain that change for myself. So I'm personally vested in it. I want people to absolutely do that. Yeah.
And I want to give a shout out. I mean, it's one of your former classmates, one of my friends and former clients from UCI as well, like Megan Valentine. I interviewed her a while back as well. And she did the same thing. You know, she was a computer science major and her health started going like downhill quickly. You know, the stress of doing in-person, dealing with the politics of in-person work, you know, over demanding and overbearing bosses, et cetera, et cetera. And I just want to give her a shout out because she made like a huge transformation with her health. And she had a kid too. She had like a young kid and she still went fully remote. And on top of that, she moved pretty much like semi off grid as well. So pretty proud of her for that. Anyway, just wanted to give her
good honor. I'm that's fantastic. I'm really happy for her. But you mentioned something important here. Actually, you said about you know, she has a kid, she has a family life, all this. That and you know, sometimes it's difficult. People don't have like a room in their home. They don't have an office. They could do this. The kids are gonna want some time, and that's cool. But sometimes you got to work, and so I can see how that causes a problem. But a lot of people see that's the number one reason for work. Another problem people come up is people are social beings, and like I don't know, I have a different attitude towards it than that. But they say that it helps them be more productive, to be around colleagues, to be around like a conducive environment. I actually get that. And you know what? It's not a reason for the office. It just isn't, because, and I've done this myself, get your work to pay for a, what's it called? These offices that you can come by, like a WeWork space, nearby, real next to you, and just temporarily grab a desk. It'll be all kinds of new people, new perspectives who you're not immediately working with. So you don't really have to have super great relations and make sure you watch yourself politically with them because they're all working at different companies. Pop on in there, grab a seat. Nobody's bugging you. Go in and jump on. That's all for that. I've done that a couple of times and it's worked well for me. So yeah, I mean, it's those are great arguments with how about like having a kid and wanting some social interaction. Pop into one of these workspaces, and temporary ones, and they're not really your actual employer. And there's going to be one closer by than your office, chances are. And then the other thing on that is you get that all that mind share, whatever perspectives you get from all kinds of different people that don't have like as close of associations with you as in your office. You have a new source of idea exchange, so you get that as well.
Well, I meant in terms of the kid, not in the sense that it's a distraction at home, but she had that financial responsibility, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
And I know a lot of people are
Yeah.
probably pressured to take in-person work because they don't want to say no, in the sense of having, facing the risk of being rejected and then not getting a paycheck. And then, you got a kid or something like that. That's what I kind of meant it in that perspective. She kind of stuck to her guns in the interview. She just mentioned an important thing, which I feel is so important. And that's, your kids obviously learn most from you, like what you do through your behavior, not what you're saying. And she didn't want to teach her kid to basically put her health second and her job first, stuff of that sort. Like, she didn't want she didn't want her kid to see her coming home super tired or having anxiety because of some social politics at work or some deadlines or stuff of that sort, and teaching her kid that that's okay to live that way,
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I only spoke out with the other angle because I've heard when I've had the remote work conversation, I've heard people make that other argument that sometimes you need like a dedicated space, and some people don't have like a huge space. Maybe they live in a tiny apartment or something, and so it's tough when the kid comes home and you still have a certain number of hours of work to do. But yeah, like her position is another great reason. I think it's fantastic that she's teaching her kids to have a mindset that is not entirely dedicated to sort of corporate labor.
Mm-hmm. And another thing is, I get a lot of clients mentioning this, but this is actually also a big thing for me as well. I find it's just, and it depends on your personality, of course. I'm more like introverted and stuff of that sort, but I just found it kind of a lot more energy draining dealing with the various types of personalities in-person work. Like you got to talk to this person this way, that person this way. This person likes things done quickly. This person likes things done slowly. This person walks by your office and wants to chit chat like once every 2 hours or something like that. And I found through my clients, actually, like in-person remote work, that pretty much disappeared. That kind of stress of having to deal with that. I don't know what your take is on that.
That is my number one reason. So you hit it on you hit the nail on the head. That's my number one reason why I prefer remote work as much as I do. I don't feel that I am actually an introverted person, even though that might be, folks might pick that up from me. I actually don't spend too much time thinking about any sort of ism or version that I am. I just don't have really time for that or much interest in it. So I do know that I don't like exactly what you said, where there's all these personality types, there's a political structure. You can't say the wrong thing to someone. That could be literally illegal. You could be making like a legal problem for yourself, like making a business problem for yourself. And you gotta, everybody has to be sort of amicable and happy with each other and with everybody's personalities and not step on each other's toes. When, like my example with the gym, working in the gym, I don't have anything to do with these people on the bikes. I don't have anything to do with any of these people. There's no reason I should have to get along with them, because there's no reason, like we don't interact in any possible means, and nothing I do interacts with them, except for a physical building, right? I don't need to maintain, social decorum norms with them. but for being in the same physical space. And so I don't need to be in the same physical space because I'm not a laborer. I don't work a machine. I don't, I don't work a many $1 million piece of capital. I work on a $1,000 computer, and I don't ever need any tools beyond that. And that's a lot of people in the country and the world. So why are we coming in? Why are we coming in like it's like when it's industrial age where we're building widgets? No, we're not really doing that. We're doing that less and less. We got 3D printers now. So one thing my mind was spacing out on the word. The place I was saying, if you have kids or you got, you need to get away from home to do work. Get a co-working space. They're all over the place. A co-working space. You just go in, pick a desk where you have a permanent space. You have your own little office. You can't say anything about it. You can't, if you need your own space, go get one, get your company to get you one co-working space. There's a lot of owned by little business owners. I visited a couple, will be a mom and pop shop. I was on a phone one time with in near Carlsbad. There was a lady running a co-working space just above a shop, a food shop or something. And she wasn't even there. I wandered in. I gave her a call. I said, "Hey, how can I send you some money?" And she says, "I'm picking up my kid. Just send me a PayPal." We did it. I had a great time. I spoke to a couple of folks working on their stuff there. Fantastic thing. Co-working space.
Is WeWork still in business, or which co-working spaces might be good ideas?
So WeWork is the most popular one of these, as I think, from what I remember. But they changed things up a little bit. They grew really fast, and I think they were a little bit more speculative. And they turned into basically a real estate company where now they just run office real estate for temporary real offices, but permanent ones, not kind of pop in to have a little office space for just but I think they still do a little bit of that. Mostly, a lot of the ones that I like best are just mom and pop shops. Look up on Google Maps just search around co-working space near your area. There's a company that does it, an app called Liquid Space. And it costs more, just like you can get a bundle deal, or you can get a one-off. One-offs cost a little bit more, $20 for the day or something, maybe more. But if you get a bundle deal, if this is really your kind of thing, you can get it for months, and it'll be a lot cheaper. And you don't have to. That's on your own. The company can pay for it. It's a business expense. Write it off on your taxes.
Hi everyone. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious. Have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Eugene Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Yeah. And for you guys, for the stuff Dmitri's mentioning, I mean, you got to really take into consideration, because those micro stresses, those little stresses that kind of a lot of people downplay, in the sense that say, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But you got to remember, like, if you know the evolution of the human central nervous system, a great book on that is Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Dr. Sapolsky. He's like a really good stress physiology researcher from Stanford. And I love all his materials, and he has like a lot of great work online as well. He just gives away a lot of tremendously good information for free. You'll see that the human central nervous system hasn't evolved to deal well with low-grade chronic stress. And you will experience a lot of that low-grade chronic stress just working in a very typical, stereotypical, like office/corporate environment, having to deal with the different personality types, having to deal with that low-grade chronic stress of getting into traffic, staying into traffic, possibly showing up late because of traffic, feeling rushed to get into work, having to get up way earlier, having to probably take up a coffee addiction. If your sleeping isn't perfect, to be able to, get up earlier, make the drive, work the longer hours, et cetera, et cetera. Like I mentioned, dealing with those different personalities, the deadlines, those micro stresses, which, a lot of people downplay, are actually basically the new smoking, and they're tremendously detrimental to your health, your immune system, and just your overall quality of life. I'm not going to go into detail here because I just don't want to take over the podcast. I want Dmitri to do a lot of the talking, but I would highly recommend reading that book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Get the audio, if you don't like reading, and you'll understand at least how the central nervous system has evolved to function. And that way you can find an environment that helps facilitate that natural evolution of the central nervous system, because you're not going to go against evolution. If you don't play by nature's rule, it's always going to come back in the form of ill health, like mental and physical health, and various symptoms of that. And then you'll end up just chasing one symptom after another your whole entire life, and get hooked up on all these like pharmaceutical drugs, and you'll just be on like the 401k plan of the local doctor, because you'll have to keep coming back because your health and your appearance just keeps getting worse and worse, et cetera, et cetera. To my point, I've seen a lot of these, not all, but a lot of these micro stresses just completely disappear when clients transition to 100% remote.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you said it's the new smoking. I think it's much worse than that. I mean, it's much more significant than that, because I think that just the drive time, the daily commute, that's the new smoking. And I mean, that's where it ranks, in terms of preventable causes of death. I'm not sure what it is in injury, but I would expect it to be even more significant, because certainly there's going to be several times more injuries than deaths in car crashes. All the rest of what you said is on top, of already the new smoking. It's big. It could be two new smokings in there. I'm not, that's maybe speculation, but it's certainly bigger than just one. I think there's a lot of research on how much people can multitask, and kind of this deep thought approach about really diving deep on certain tasks and having that like free space to really consider the outlines of a problem without other stuff on your mind. I think there's a book about deep work by Cal Newport, which is a great reference. And it's to do, so there, from what I recall, there's about, the average person can keep about seven active, complicated tasks in their sort of memory buffer that they can make any much progress on. Beyond that, you start to just lose track of what's going on. And at any one time, you think you can only really be engaged in about 3 tasks to be working effectively. So that's pretty much the extent to which you can multitask at all on anything that requires any sort of significant brain power. But at any instant, you can only really be working on one task at that instant. So deep work and kind of the research on that is about making sure that you get into a flow state, which is sort of a single-minded focus on a particular challenging task, and kind of dedicating solid chunks of time to just that task, to making sure it's done well and done right. And that's a lot harder to do when you're having to think about driving in and who you're going to go to lunch with and where you're going to go to lunch, and what Betty, Susie, and Bill told you on the way in. And, you got to listen about the new, Game of Thrones or whatever is the current sitcom people are talking about. Oh, you gotta make sure you have that conversation, because, Dave gets real upset when you don't chime in on that. And he's going to be doing your yearly review. You want to make sure you talk about Game of Thrones with him at the water cooler. And so, okay, where's your deep thought now? Yourself, like, at some point somebody thought they were hiring you to solve actual problems. Like, where's your deep thought? You're thinking about
It's most always just solving social political problems in that.
Oh yeah. You're talking about Game of Thrones and how Trump's a bad guy, but Biden's not so much better. And now, like, were you even hired to do any work in the first place? No. It's all about Game of Thrones, Trump and Biden, making sure you know where you're going to lunch, and making sure you didn't park too close to Jeff or Susan's car. No, not interested. I don't need any of that nonsense. Not a bit.
I feel like, I don't know, this could be a biased observation. I have no way of proving it whatsoever, but I feel like almost the kind of like, I don't know, like semi-sociopathic, like that likes to smooth their way to the top, kind of personality prefers that in-person work. That kind of,
Yeah, I get that.
on the actual quality of their work.
I totally get that. I mean, if you,
Environment, the spirit, they would lose like the only thing that really promotes them, and that's their kind of quote unquote almost parasitic personality.
yeah, I agree. I mean, if it's a good way, if you get a fat paycheck for doing it, why not, right? I mean, people justify all kinds of stuff like that. I think it's very much to your point. That's why I was saying, I was making my little off-color comment, I guess, about I think there's a tendency towards like S&M with these people at some level in their mind. There's some sort of Victorian, like you put on the suit, you put on the dress, very suit and tie, shiny black shoes, but but what you're really there for is you really want to see someone tied up and doing what they're told. You want to have that appearance of decorum, that like aura of respect. But really, what you want to be doing is disrespecting, controlling, tying, binding, all of these things. You don't want to call it that, and you don't want to think about it like that. But that's what you want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is like that. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I feel, and I feel like the pyramid structure of a typical kind of corporate or office environment just reinforces that. The top-down bureaucratic, like pyramid style of the work.
Yeah, I mean, people have a lot to say about like horizontal versus vertically integrated companies and all this. I'm not a huge. I prefer horizontally without this kind of respect hierarchy, but for me, that's a little bit less. I don't mind if there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy. You can sort of make your way through that without terrible problems, I think. I prefer a horizontal type of situation. That's true, but I think as long as you don't have the kind of physical presence or these kind of specific kowtowing, it's a good term. Kowtowing is a fantastic term to look up. Experiences where you have to physically be there, you have to kiss the ring, you have to put on the chain, make sure you're seen putting on the chain, get at the desk, make sure you're seen at the desk, this sort of stuff. As long as you don't have that aspect going on in the hierarchy where you're demonstrating loyalty, you're demonstrating subservience, you're willing to degrade yourself in front of your master. As long as you don't have that, it's all right. Somebody can call themselves your higher up, your double plus higher up, your general's general, your vice super president general. It doesn't really matter if you're not doing any of these things. They can call themselves whatever they want. Call themselves Susie Sally, right? It doesn't matter.
I'm surprised they kind of pushed to get people back in the sense of the liability of having COVID spread at work again, because it's like the government doesn't hold the liability. The pharmaceutical companies don't hold the liability. The liability goes to the business owner then,
You can't.
That would be more of an incentive to keep people at home, because now it's like if the employee went back into work and all of a sudden they didn't want to, for example, and they got sick and had to be hospitalized, like that's pretty much the employer's fault,
In my view, no, even money. Corporate is supposed to be all about money and all about the bottom line. Even money, even returns, even liability. Nothing tops this need, this pathological need for the perception, at least, of control. So they're willing to pay for it. I mean, they're willing to do anything that they need to do to have the control. And so even if it means making faulty decisions in terms of liability, making risky decisions, well, they can justify it by saying, business is all about risk. All my friends are doing it. We're going to human resources conferences and talking about how we're going to get all our people, our guys and gals back at the office making the same effort. We're all in the same boat. We're just Tina. There's no alternative, right? There's no alternative to everybody coming back to work. We're all in this together. We'll all make it work together. And we mean taking on all this liability and forcing people to come back and being physically there.
Mm-hmm. Do you find like remote workers get promoted less? Is that an issue?
I've heard that it is, but I don't. I've seen articles highlighting this, and I've seen studies highlighting this, but I don't. There's a grain of salt there. If you're at a place which which values your kowtowing, your ability to kiss the ring, grovel, to come in, make sure, degrade yourself sufficiently that people want to promote you, prove your loyalty. It's probably not a healthy place. It's probably not a place that is actually doing as much good for you as you are for them. You're probably not gaining valuable skills just by being there, because those are not really very well functional places. Just because there is no alternative or whatever, that they're in the 90%, that doesn't mean that you are gaining skills and being there. Sometimes the alternative is the lack of alternative. It's going with the minority because the majority is wrong, basically, right? You're just, no one's gonna have sympathy for you when you say, oh, I was one of these ill-functioning places, but everyone was doing it at the time. When you die of cancer from smoking, nobody cares that everyone was doing it at the time. You just have it. Nobody cares about the skills you didn't get by being in a bad functioning place. On you.
And I always tell people, like, hey, in a world where 9 out of 10 people are, full of obesity and disease and full of a lot of mental and physical pain, it's like totally okay and actually admirable to be different, and go against the flow.
Ultimately, you get what you get is very related to your own actions. Not fully, of course. There's a lot of environmental factors that go into it. But fact of the matter is, you're not going to sue yourself or complain yourself or nag yourself out of a bad situation that a past version of you put yourself into. Just like you're saying, if you don't make the investments that you need to make to have a happy, healthy future self, it doesn't matter who it is that you're going to be blamed. You're just going to get unhappy or unhealthier by blaming other people, by blaming your past anyway. Even if it's true, it doesn't matter. It's not a control variable, right? But what you do have yourself as a control variable. So if you change things to not smoke and not have, it's a lot easier to look back when something bad happens. Something good happens, you're not smoking and you don't, get a disease. You can't go back and say, oh, I'm so glad I stopped or I never started. But it's still true, that's an alternative life path you've set up for yourself.
Have you ever looked into, since, when you work remote, you can basically kind of do it anywhere. Have you ever looked into, like our friend Megan, she moved semi off grid and everything, but have you ever looked into just living abroad? Like I remember when I was in India way back in 2013, I ran into kind of like a retired US firefighter guy. And he was just living off his pension there, but he's living in US dollars, obviously. And what he was earning from his pension, I forgot exactly what it was. It must have been 4 or 5 or thousand a month or something like that. That's like a tremendous amount of money there, So I was just wondering if you looked into the possibility of, because you still get to keep your salary, but you have it so much longer in even other states in America or other countries in total, in general.
Yep, for sure. I have looked into it, and I mean, I'm going to admit it. You've narrowed in on a point that I haven't optimized for myself as much. I'm heavily looking into it. I have spoken. A lot of people who do this regularly, they call themselves digital nomad. That's kind of the buzzword term, right? And I know a couple who've done that, and so I had good reviews. So they're happy with it. They a lot of times. When you're remote working, a lot of times you're working a lot. So I had a lot of talks where this guy will be, for instance, living in Mexico City and having a good time there, new experiences. But, he's what he's seeing by being there, he's saving money, of course, but he's also seeing the 4 walls of his room while he's working. So when you're working, a lot of times you have a big chunk of dedicated work that you're just doing. And no matter where you are, you're going to be seeing a lot of the same 4 walls. And there's tax implications, because you can't often, if your primary domicile is still in a particular state, you're going to be paying that state's taxes to a large point. I'm not an expert on that, but that's my understanding. And also there's if you move around in multiple different places and you want that reflected in your taxes, it can be a bit of a mess. Again, I'm not in any way an expert or even journeyman on these topics, but that's my understanding. But I am looking into it. I think I can do what I do as well from one spot on the earth as from another, as long as there's good electricity, good internet connectivity. I'm thinking about a more of an off-grid style of existence, but it's not. Maybe I'll listen to Megan's podcast on that. Let's put it that way. I should. That's something I'm still looking towards optimizing in my life. Maybe future me will be happy when I do.
Yeah. Well, maybe Musk will send you to Mars and say, "Well, you want to work remote? Then go work on Mars."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll see him. I'll see him in there. He said his dream is to die on Mars. Hopefully not on impact. So,
Yeah.
so technically.
It's on impact. That's an epic way to go, man.
Oh, I was going to say, technically, if he suffocates, that's okay.
Yeah.
He still wins.
Yeah, no, I mean, even if it's on impact, I mean, imagine how cool that is, dude. You put yourself in a rocket and go freaking shoot at another planet.
That's right. That's right. That's a hell of a way to go. You'll definitely go down in the history books.
So, Dmitri, let's say, you ran into. Okay, this is kind of stupid, but I have to bring it up. Do you remember Red Alert 1? We used to play it back in the day.
I remember it really well. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you remember how they had that chronosphere and they're able to teleport back time and they're able to like kill Hitler and then, I don't know, save Einstein? I forget the exact deal.
Yep.
But if you're to have that and you're able to teleport back to Dmitri at 22, finishing your undergrad or even your graduate program and kind of, because a lot of people are in that situation too. And their eyes are basically most likely glued to like in-person work and all that stuff. Like, what would you tell to convince that Dmitri to go to remote right away instead of spending so much time doing in-person, like you did for many years?
Yep, I know exactly what I'd say because I actually had this kind of thought somewhere as I was in school and trying to figure out whether I was going to make this work. And I hit a certain point where I decided, just like the companies do, just like a lot of people try to do. This is a big strategy in political circus. Tina, there is no alternative. I at some point realized for myself that there is no alternative. Simply, I will not work that way, right? And so convinced that at some point you think, well, maybe this is not an attitude that is compatible with the world, right? Maybe you're crazy. Like what if you decide, I can fly and you start jumping off of buildings, even if you really believe it, it won't last very long. It'll last right up until the floor 7 building or whatever, floor 5 building until you kill yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so I found that this I will only work remote dream or whatever you want to call it attitude, it's not like that. You may break a leg, break a knee, make a couple of sprains here and there, but it's not like the flying thing. You can do it if that's your real priority, that's your real concern. And that was before COVID. COVID really shifted stuff a lot for us. Now I believe something like 90% of folks who are out in terms of the U.S. Industry who were working on site before the pandemic. I think they are back, unfortunately. And I hope that changes. But in the computer and the technical industries, tech workers, and interestingly, legal, about half of them only about half. So 50% in those two industries of your coworkers are primarily remote. So it's doable. And I hope that there's a swing. I hope only the people who absolutely need to be on site because they're pulling levers and they're like on a military ship or they're working on a multi-million-dollar press or whatever, and there's no alternative to them physically being there. I hope everybody else is remote, every single person. I really do hope that. I think it'll help on so many different vectors for themselves and just for an attitude, because there's a lot, we're both from the former USSR. And the USSR, one of the big problems with there is this, they really wanted equity, they really wanted equality, they really wanted mind share, they wanted everyone to be on exactly the same page in the same exact jumpsuits. And like Scarface, the movie, they want to control what you say, what you think, what you do. Yeah, and that's why he escaped to America. because it didn't have that. There's a lot of culture, a lot of attitude about going on site. That's that communist attitude that we ran away from, that America used to pride itself on not having something like that, right? Maybe it still does, I'm not sure. But my point is, it'll be a better, healthier, I think, society for people to not have to maintain these unnecessary social conformity with people really who they don't interact with too much. Sort of like the push with the Soviets. I escaped. I don't want the thing coming back after me in wearing a different hat and having a different accent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I could have, like I said earlier in the podcast, I mean, I could objectively prove through HAQ scores that clients, at least my clients' health, just dramatically improved when transitioning, and just overall feeling of balanced life and their happiness, etc., spending more time with family, just all dramatically improved when transitioning from in-person to remote work. And to back up your claim, yeah, I mean, like I always say, sick people can't make healthy decisions, or they wouldn't be sick to begin with. And unfortunately, a lot of the leadership that's pushing to go back to in-person work for people that don't really need to be in person are not doing well physically or mentally. And of course, if they're not doing well physically or mentally, their decisions are going to reflect that pathology as well. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So,
yeah. I mean, ultimately, the same problem for us as individuals, for a country, for society, anybody, is limited resources, except, attention, time. There's so many other different limited resources, skills, availability, right? If these are all, you make choices. So if you're going in, if you're traveling, if you're paying attention to what Susie at the desk or Billy behind the counter has to think about you, those are choices you make. Those are limited resources that you're allocating, right? You could be working out during that time. You could be just not worrying really during that time. You will allocated that much of yourself, of your life, to those concerns. And if those go away, there's more time to allocate to not having stress, to keeping track of your health, just to have a better lifestyle that isn't so over concerned with the attitudes and the opinions of all these different people about you. And so, yeah, I think when you scale that up, it applies to groups, it applies to societies, it applies to even human society, right? When less people are worrying about it, there was a time when food was everybody's primary worry. That's all anyone would talk about, all anyone would think about. And it's gone now. We can't even imagine it anymore, right? We just go down, we get whatever we want to eat, we eat it, I mean, there's still world hunger. That's not gone yet. But to a lot of people, they don't think about that in their daily lives, right? It's the same sort of thing. Like I want a world where people don't care. They just don't care what Sandy and Sally and Billy and John think about them, or what their attitude about Game of Thrones and who's in politics is at a given moment. It has nothing to do with what you're doing, your existence. It doesn't touch you one bit. It's just this crap. It's just this pollution in the air hanging out about, sucking away your time, sucking away your attention, taking away, like leeching the life out of you that you could be spending on your family, on your health, on your skills, anything. All this nonsense, just eking out of you, fluffing people's pocketbooks, and fluffing their sense of control and building their sense of social conformity.
Yeah,
we don't need it.
I wouldn't want to live in, that's for sure.
We don't need it. We don't need it. We should be free of it, like we're free of the concern of where's my next 5 calories coming from for me to survive. We're not back in those caveman days. We're getting away from them. So let's get away from this. Let's be our own. Let's have our own opinions, our own attitudes, our own lifestyles, and not have to worry about people whose lives don't affect ours for the most part.
No, I'm totally for it, man. I'm definitely sold on the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dmitri, honestly, I feel your passion in this conversation, man. I really felt it through your voice. Do you have like um, any other tips you can have for someone struggling to kind of jump the ship and have the guts to tell their boss, like, "Hey, I'm working remote or I'm going to quit," but kind of afraid to do
Yeah,
so?
it is. I mean, all I can, it's, it's a pep talk or whatever, but it's all I can think to do is like, it can work. It's not like it make me, I gave a grad student recently this, actually, this is a great example. I was speaking to another PhD student who was just closing, and I had an awesome chat with him all over text, over, internet communication. I've never seen the guy's face. And we had a great, like, deep conversation on this, and about, he was looking to do exactly, was becoming a digital nomad, but he was a little worried about whether he was going to be able to pull off a fully remote job. And I gave him the pep talk. I gave him some advice in terms of how much money to ask for, and how to do all the little technical stuff. But the main thing I think I helped is to just give him that little cheerleading, that kind of encouragement to be like, come on, man, don't settle for less. Do it. It's not like jumping without without a parachute. You can do it. It's hard, but it's absolutely worth it. The thing, one of the things that people make problems that, like, people say when they try to say, oh, is it really remote work? Is it really, everything is the same. It's not any different. Just come on in. That's not how we do things. They try to play these games. They try to, like, tempt you, lure you, almost like the smoking commercials, just one little drag. Don't worry about it. Everyone's doing it. You want to be cool. And the thing is, what I like to make an analogy of it, it's like sailing. It's like sailing on a yacht or a cruise ship or something. It's like sailing on top of the ship. The ship's the same, the destination's the same, the source is the same, versus you're hanging onto the side of the ship. Everything is the same. They're identical. You shouldn't prefer one versus another. Who cares? It's a ship, it's water, it's the same water. You're going from A to B. There's no difference. Don't worry about it. Just pop on off the side by the propeller, hang on for dear life. It's all the same thing. You don't need to be on top of the ship. What's the same thing? The only thing that's different is your orientation, right? It's your perspective and kind of where you are in relation to that situation. It's hard to put that down, in words, to say, oh, this is different. It takes a long time. It's a little bit of a deeper concept than ship, water, boat, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it to just push through and just have that confidence that it's not like it's doable. I know a lot of people, they feel depressed, and they're like, they know in their heart of hearts that they can't do it, that nobody can do it, that it's not a real possibility. Remote work is a lie, it's a fraud, it's all hybrid, it's all this and that. You can never really do it. You can't. I've been doing it. I know tons of people who are doing it. It's hard. I was out of work for 9 months once, first trying out. It was real tough. But like I said, what I would tell my 22-year-old self, or however many old, is either do this or just don't even get out. Go do something else. Just don't do it. Go whatever. Go be a farmer. Go do some in-person work that doesn't have you dealing with Sally, Paul, Kyle, and Luke at the front desk and managing the heating and whatnot. Just don't do it. Get out. Fuck it. Leave. If you can't, that's what it takes to be in whatever industry you're in, get out of your industry. It's worth it to just not do it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Hey, all great advice.
It's a hard line, but that's what I would recommend.
No, and there are so many examples of people doing so well with remote work. I mean, I'm doing well with remote work and I'm in a field like you would think wouldn't even work with remote work,
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth it.
I hired Dr. Stuart McGill. He's like the world leading low back pathology researcher. And he did a full assessment on me remotely. He's in Canada. I'm here in the States, and I got a way better assessment than any chiropractor or MD in person from him.
Yeah.
And actually we got to the etiology of what was causing my low back discomfort, and I was able to solve it. It's like way better. It's expertise of the talent, not whether it's in person or remote. Oftentimes, man, it's the personal knowledge base. And I don't know. I think, Dmitri, people will wake up, especially as the oldies kind of start filtering out, and
I hope so.
But hey, we found a way to do it. So we found our freedom, the best we can do
Yeah.
is just set an example that it's possible and it works, and it's there so people can take advantage of it too, and build a life for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hope they do. I hope everybody who this reaches does, to the extent that they can, take advantage of that, because I think it's just, like I said, it's like being on board the ship or hanging off the side. It's a huge experiential difference, at least from my end. There's, takes different strokes for different folks, different kinds make the world go round. But that's me. That's my perspective, my attitude. I think a lot of people share it, even if they're a little bit confined or don't want to reveal that part of them or whatever. And I hope that it becomes more normalized, more standardized, and we're not all stuck doing the stuff we don't want to be doing for no reason. I think a good test is when you're talking about some job, some work, and they're trying to tell you, oh, you got to come in here and there. Just think about it. Just sit back. Let's write down what they said. Write down the argument. Think about it. Sit back. Just close your eyes and think about the actual content of what they said, and make your determination for yourself. How much of that is BS? How much of that is, Tina, there is no alternative? How much of that is all the cool kids are doing it? Jump on the bandwagon. How much of it is, oh, we're going to be inventing new fusion if you come and smell our farts in our meeting room with our whiteboards. And if a lot of it is, they're trying to fool you. I mean, how many? They're no better than a spearfisher or these scam emails. They're no better than that. Do you really want to work for some place like that? And so sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes they're going to write you and say, look, we have a $3 million press, and we're not going to send it to your home. I'm sorry, you have to come in. And in that case, well, at least they're not screwing with you. You can come in or you cannot, but they're not messing with you. That's the case. They're not going to ship the machine to you. But that's not that often. Maybe if it is, jump ship, find another place, somewhere you don't have a machine that your entire livelihood depends on.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times people are also in this black and white mindset. Everyone has to work remote or everyone has to work in person. It's not the case, dude. It's just get the people that could work remotely, and the people that genuinely can't, then,
of course,
that's just how it is. But it doesn't mean that the system can't work. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. There's tons of stuff. We don't have surgery robots that are in every case or in most cases as good as human surgeons. Tons of different, you want people running the nuclear reactor who will not be disrupted in any way or something like that. There's lots and lots of jobs like that. But, I think most jobs now are ones that you can do remote. Maybe not most, maybe a lot, but I think a lot at least. You can't do road work. You can't do construction remotely yet. But it's more and more. More and more you can. It's more and more that we can, but we won't. There's a block there, a mental block, a habituation block, and a need for control, a pathological need and desire to have what you see as your personal capital. People in corporate, they refer to human resources as human resource. You're a resource. A printer is a resource. It's not a human resource. It's a technological resource.
Human.
Yeah, it might be a human. You're treated on paper the same way. And if you're going to be treated the same way on paper anyway, just do it from your house, man. From your house. So, you're going to be affected by the same way. At least you're going to be having a good time at it.
Yeah. And kind of a closing piece of advice that I got from my friend Jator. Look, if in your heart, you don't want to be driving to work or dealing with that social politics or seeing your boss or whatever, and you want to be working remote, he always said, and it sounds so weird, it sounds so contradicting, but he always said, you always have to be selfish, Eugene, wherever you go, you always got to be selfish, because that's the only way any long-term meaningful career would last, or only way any relationship would last. Because if you're not selfish and you constantly don't have your needs met, you're going to grow bitter to that job or that relationship, and it might, quote unquote, work in the sense it might continue, but you'll be very miserable, and that misery will eventually manifest itself into physical illness, which will cause more misery, and then eventually your death as well, and stuff of that sort. So you always have to identify your core values And then B, just live true to those core values and make sure like, hey, if remote work is genuinely you want to do, you have to find every single possible way to make it work. And I'm pretty sure if you spent 8 hours a day researching on how to make it work instead of 8 hours a day driving to a job and doing in-person work that's making you miserable, you will find a solution. I freaking guarantee it. So Dmitri,
That's exactly my case. I just want to say that's exactly what happened.
our friend Megan and my former client found a solution. She had a 1-year-old kid to financially look after as well, and she still found a solution. There are hundreds of other examples. My friend Jator Pierre that I mentioned as well works remote. Dude, it's possible if you just spent 8 hours a day researching and figuring out how to make it happen instead of 8 hours a day doing something that makes you miserable, you'll freaking figure it out. And especially with online now, you can reach out to so many different people that have made it work and stuff of that sort. Dude,
we're all happy to help. I think that's what I find. Everyone I run into has the same mindset of getting as many people on board the wagon, even if there's this little like competing for work kind of thing. People want more people on board the train. They don't want to be pulled back into the pen, you know. So we're all happy. I've helped people, talk to them, whatever little knowledge I have on it, I've given freely and fully to anyone who has asked me about it, because it's my strongly held view about how we should all be free of that kind of onerous sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree, Dmitri. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something that I think that those are really important words of wisdom about how you can't just build up resentment, and you have to, you know, enjoy life as you live, not just do what is necessary all the time, or even if it's built up as something that's like there's no alternative. I hate that. I hate Tina stuff. There is no alternative. People love that little argument, and I hate it because sometimes that alternative is just going all in on the non-alternative, you know, and then that's what makes an alternative. But what I was going to say is, still, there's a part of that where, you know, a lot of life is still about compromise. You can't just jump out of a plane with no parachute and expect, because you have a strong will and because you really wanted, that you're going to take off. No, you're gonna die. You're going to be really injured. But that it's not always the case. It's not the case with remote work. You can do it. You can make it happen for yourself. Look at all these people that have done it. And, you know, for me, I didn't know whether any kind of corporate work or any kind of work in a corporate style environment was something that is going to allow me to have any sort of pleasant life at all. Like whether it was just contradictory, whether, you know, I needed to go off and, I don't know, find my own little niche somewhere and kind of set up shop there, or like whether I could not coexist, let's say, with the modern world as it is, while still being at all happy, or my other alternative is just go into the job every day and just be miserable for 40 years and then retire and die. But, you know, I just want to say, like this did it for me. I can have a regular corporate job that's remote, and it's fine. It works for me. I'm happy. I don't have a terrible day to day or whatever at all. I'm great. I love it. Even though it's the same kind of thing that if I was coming in, I'd be miserable. I just come home wanting to down a pint of whiskey and sit there spinning the barrel, really taking a good think about my life. But I'm not like that at all anymore. I'm just happy. It's the same job. It's the ship. It's the ship analogy. I'm on the ship now. I'm not hanging off the side. I want everybody on the ship with me. I don't want anyone hanging off the side, just cursing their life and their existence in some kind of society, right? And so, even though it's a compromise, you can get there. Just like those words of wisdom, where you gotta really make those greedy choices. But sometimes the greedy choices are not reasonable. They do not comport with the physical state of the world. They're not evolutionarily stable. Like you will die before you make it work. Remote work just isn't like that. You can do it. Everyone's doing it. Please just do this.
All right, Dmitri. Hey, man, I'm so happy to hear that you're doing so well, and I hear the passion in your voice behind this, and I feel like so many people can benefit it, man. I never seen anyone like get worse from doing it, you know?
Yeah, same here. Haven't seen it.
And I have actually the data to prove it from so many clients already that just all their biological markers improved tremendously by making that shift, and just overall perception of happiness in life have improved a lot. So to prove that objectively, no problem. And so thanks, man. It was great to hear from you. If you don't have any closing statements, I'm going to kind of close it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's it. I just want to say, I think he asked me about like a pithy thing, something to put in. All I can say is that I reiterated a couple of times, just that cheerleading, like people are doing it, you can do it. It comports, like it works. Just do it. If you want it, just do it. If you want to try it, just do it. Try it. That's it.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Dmitri.
Thanks, man. Later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.